So today, we know the challenge isn't just coordination, it's about mobilization. So how are your institutions essentially evolving to deliver deeper, faster, and more inclusive impact across the region?
Happy to. I'll be very, try to keep it short. Thank you so much, Sharon. You know, this is a really good question, really a question around which, this mobilization question, the multilateral development banks are being reinvented right now. We used to be measured as to how much do we lend for impact. Now we really get measured increasingly how much do we mobilize for impact, right? So for the Asian Development Bank, the journey, the transition, the evolution has really been from being a sovereign project lender towards a convener of the entire ecosystem, bringing together governments, financial institutions, project investors, etc. How have we done that? We've reorganized ourselves internally, more client-focused solutions, orientation, etc. We have resharpened our priorities. We have private sector mobilization, core and center of our priority lists. We have doubled down on regional cooperation and integration, pooling capital and solutions for shared priorities, like the ASEAN Power Grid, for example, or digital connectivity. And we are working, leveraging our government networks to combine upstream policy reforms with downstream investments. Last thing I'd say, what is more than ever crucial around mobilization and in a rather dynamic and fast-changing world is partnerships. Yes. So we are working together with other MDBs, we're working together with governments, with private sector, with sponsors, in order towards aligned efforts, increased opportunities together.
Thank you, Winfried. Alan, your thoughts?
Thank you. Under the leadership of President Ajay Banga, IFC, as part of One World Bank Group, has really refocused its priority around jobs. Jobs here being the main solution to addressing poverty. And in the ASEAN region, I think over the years, strong growth has led to a pretty resilient job market. And so today, most people in ASEAN seeking work can find work. But there are still some challenges that remain. You've got aging workforce in countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and then you've got a youth bulge in other markets, such as the Philippines, Indonesia, or Cambodia. And then you also still have lots of informal employment in the region. You know, the World Bank Group is going through reforms that aim to harness all 5 institutions within the group to address the jobs challenge.
Yes.
And I think, you know, the objective is to really improve speed, impact, and scale.
Yeah.
Over the past few years, we've been able to cut down approval times by 26%, streamlined our corporate scorecard from about 150 to just 22 impact indicators. We've increased our lending capacity by over 100 billion over the next 10 years. Incredible. And we've strengthened partnerships with the IMF and other multilateral development banks, yes, including ADB. And the priority, again, remains focused on jobs.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think, you know, the focus here is going to be really around policy reforms, foundational investments in foundational infrastructure, roads, ports, electricity,
yes,
digital sort of ecosystems or digital access, and then skills and education. And then I think there's also greater focus around industries and sectors that are the most job creating.
Yes, it's a long list, isn't it? But I'm going to jump in there because we only have 6 more minutes. So I'm going to ask the next question. Interesting, Winfried, obviously you mentioned the ASEAN power grid. It's really fascinating what's going on there because it's really showing how ASEAN as a region can come together to connect and, of course, to grow together. So what is different this time? It's bringing together, of course, renewable energy to be shared across the region. Tell us, how is the ADB and others really enhancing cooperation between the countries?
Super topical question. Really, the ASEAN Power Grid, APG, has really moved from being an aspirational vision towards a strategic imperative, given the energy transition and the electricity needs and increasing demand. So capturing the ambition, as you asked, really it is capturing also the imagination, because I think it is, the ASEAN Power Grid is much wider, much broader, much larger than just a power grid. It's about economic integration. It captures the imagination, and you see that in the ASEAN, when ASEAN leaders, ASEAN energy ministers come together. Now other ministers speak about that as well. So let's watch that space. What is different now? Technology, capital, and political will, importantly, are increasingly aligning. Different is now the speed and the scale of the ambition. In the last, 30 years, we have developed 7.5 gigawatt of interconnections, power interconnections in the region. This will be doubled. The ambition is to double that in the next 15 years, right? What is different about that is that it's increasingly involving the private sector, much more than the first 7.5 gigawatts, but also increasingly mega projects. We're talking subsea cables, etc. So that requires more political will, that requires very careful risk allocation, and that requires an unprecedented level of collaboration between the players. What do we bring in as multilateral ADB, working very closely with the World Bank? We've been requested to, through the APG financing initiative, to coordinate the finance ecosystem. We bring in our convening power together with the World Bank to bring all the governments, the investors, the sponsors, the financiers together. We bring in speed by helping prepare projects that are bankable. And we are bringing in scale. We have committed $10 billion to support the ASEAN Power Grid. And with those $10 billion, we are going to catalyze other investors.
Yeah, fabulous. And I'm so pleased to hear that because obviously I'm on the ADB LinkedIn channel, and the ADB's just announced with the World Bank and ASEAN the launch of the ASEAN Power Grid Financing Initiative. So this is so topical right now that we're talking about this. Of course, as you say, mobilizing private capital is crucial, Winfried. So I'm going to move to you, Alan, very briefly. Obviously, IFC brings together private capital for public good, but we know lots of barriers stand in the way in terms of scaling up investment. So what kind of tools are you using to try to drive the stronger private sector momentum within ASEAN?
IFC exists precisely to attract private investment into emerging and developing economies. The objective is to narrow the huge development gaps that we find in these economies. I think we're evolving beyond being a financial or providing direct financing to becoming a platform for channeling private capital into these economies. I think the focus, in order for us to be able to channel private financing at scale, we are focused very much on, again, working on policy and regulatory reforms to bring certainty or more certainty to the private sector around policies and regulation. We are also focused on streamlining guarantee instruments that we provide to be able to attract the private sector into many projects or huge projects, particularly in infrastructure, where you need the guarantee instruments. Third, we're scaling local currency financing to deepen domestic capital markets. I think domestic capital markets, we cannot overemphasize the importance of developing domestic capital markets to channel private capital into emerging markets. And then fourth, we are significantly growing our equity book to provide long-term capital to support companies' growth in these markets. Finally, we are launching an emerging market securitization platform. I think we recently concluded a landmark securitization CLO, collateralized loan obligation transaction for $510 million US. That was a landmark transaction for us. With all these recommendations, mobilization is expected to be the cornerstone. Yeah. Last year, for instance, in Malaysia, IFC provided $150 million US to finance the construction of the Yonder data center campus in Johor Bahru, attracting and mobilizing over about $800 million from a consortium of global financial institutions. This exactly is what we mean by mobilization.
Absolutely. That is the word, mobilization. And you've both shown very clearly how it's being done at such a pace now. There's a real momentum. There is impact with mobilization. So please, a big round of applause to both our multilateral development bank specialists. We have Alan Forlemu and Winfried Wicklein, both from the ADB. And best of luck to you at the ASEAN Summit this week. I'm sure a lot will be spoken about. Thank you both, gentlemen.